And now, coming to you live from Huntsville Attic Studios, it's Pop Culture Philosophers. And here are your hosts, Rockin, Robbie, Billups, and John Hammertime Holshoe.
Hey everybody, it's the Pop Culture Philosophers, coming to you live from the Huntsville Attic in Huntsville, Alabama. Tonight we're going to be talking about Earth's mightiest heroes. That's right, the Rescue Rangers, Chippendale's Rescue Rangers. No, we're going to talk about Marvel's Avengers. We're going to talk about the comics, and even if you're not a big comic fan, I'm sure you're familiar with the Avengers from all the new films and the Captain America, Iron Mans, and all that stuff. And of course, I'm John Hammertime Holshoe. With me always, we're Rockin' Robbie Billups.
Hey John, how are you doing?
I am pumped.
What are you pumped for?
For the talk about the Avengers.
Yes, me too. Absolutely. I love the Avengers. I love comic books. I love Marvel comics, especially. And we all know that I love the Avengers. So I'm super excited, John, to be talking about the Avengers with you. John, I want to ask you a question real quick before we introduce our guest with us tonight. I want to know, why do you love the Avengers, John? Because we're doing the show. Why? Well, because Avengers Infinity War is coming out, obviously. But why do you like the Avengers, John? I want to know.
I think it's just, I think everybody likes comic books. Everybody likes Marvel characters, and so it's this collection of great superheroes teaming up.
Oh, yes.
Same reason I'm a fan of the Justice League, man. I like the big cohesive teams.
It's basically Marvel's Justice League.
Yeah, I like the cohesive teams, man. You have some great characters working together, and I didn't read a lot of books as I was a kid. I'd pick up one or two books, but I always picked up the group books because you're getting all these doses of all these great characters, and even introduced me to characters I normally wouldn't have read or even excited about.
And you're a kid, so you get like maybe at best $10 a week to spend on comics. I
buy 3-4 books a week.
I used to get you a good stack of comics.
That's right. Speaking of good stack of comics, that was Brooks the Magnificent, everybody. Brooks Gibbs. Brooks, welcome to the studio.
Hey, thanks for having me.
He couldn't reach the mic, so he's sitting on a stack of comics.
Yes,
so he's up higher.
No, what I was saying, Brooks, is
a throne of comics.
What I was saying, Brooks, is that when you're young, you get limited funds for comic books. Even when you're an adult, you have limited funds for comic books, right? And so... And Brooks does this for sure, because Brooks is one of my customers at the comic shop, and I know this. Brooks is like, I don't need to read Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor. I can read Thor and Avengers and have my Cap fix, my Iron Man fix, my Hawkeye fix. Brooks is like, Avengers kills it all in one stuff, right? It's just
like Avengers. That's what I love about the Avengers. They were kind of my introduction to the larger Marvel universe.
Yeah,
because I was more an X-Men. Like specifically.
Oh, yeah.
But the Avengers kind of reached out into all those other great heroes, but they're all together. And so you don't have to buy like 3 books. You can
We're
buy
all
one.
gonna hang together. Speaking of togetherness, we got Drew Madsen with us, everybody.
I love togetherness. No.
Drew, first of all, I want to say that's the longest introduction we've ever done on a show. We'll never do it like that again, guys, we promise. Drew, tell me why you love the Avengers.
Well, I love the Avengers, and yeah, that was a long intro, but it had to build it up to get to me. I love the Avengers because it, like you guys have said, it is a way to get something from everything. Like there are X-Men in the Avengers, there's Thor, Cap. Like you don't have to read a million books; you get to see all the characters you love, and part of that is the way they interact with each other. Because Thor is very much like very chivalrous and talking about how honor and everything, and then you have assassins and agents like Black Widow who just wants to get the job done. Their interplays are always great.
Yeah, a lot of different characters interacting in different kinds of ways. That's a super fun thing about the Avengers. Like in the Justice League, especially back in the day, they were all kind of the same character. They're all this like super Boy Scout or Girl Scout, in certain cases, but they're all this Superman mock-up. Even Batman, back in the heyday of the Justice League, which was honestly the 60s, right? Like, even back then, like, Batman was more like Superman, right? He was all like, hey, everybody. But at Marvel, the characters were a little bit different, and that was something that really affected the Avengers. I'm with you guys, but first of all, like why do I love the Avengers? First of all, they aren't the X-Men. Right, Brooks? And right, John? Like, you guys are both X-Men fans, but you realize that everybody, when we were growing up, were X-Men fans. Yeah. Everybody loved X-Men. Everybody loved Spider-Man. And I love Spider-Man, and I love the X-Men. But I really appreciated comic books like the Fantastic Four and the Avengers because they were a section of the Marvel Universe that you didn't get to see just solely being an X-Men fan, like Brooks was saying, right?
Well, the Fantastic Four kind of touched the Marvel, like the entire Marvel Universe, like very subtly, mostly. but over time they kind of became less relevant.
Yeah, and like John said, they're the Justice League of Marvel. Like, it's all the biggest
I think you
characters.
said it, and I just agreed with you.
Okay. But they're the Justice League of Marvel. It's the biggest characters. And that's why when Bendis came in, he brought in Spider-Man and Wolverine because he was like, we need a Batman and Superman here. You know? And they have their own trinity. Like, there's like the three most popular Marvel characters to me. They're Spider-Man, Hulk, Wolverine. Yeah. Right? That's like a trinity. Right? That could be compared to Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman. However, Marvel also has Cap, Thor, and Iron Man. They have two separate trinities, and it's like it's insane, right? It's really, really cool. So, a quick history on the Avengers. First of all, created in 1963 by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. A funny thing about the first Avengers issue is what happened was that Bill Everett, the creator of Namor, the Submariner, was going to be doing a book with Stan Lee called Daredevil, right? But at this time in his life, Mr. Everett was dealing with some problems with substance abuse, with alcoholism, right? So the book was going to be delayed. It was significantly delayed. But Marvel already had this time reserved at the printers. They had to take it. So Stan Lee and Jack Kirby got together and they said, well, let's just take these popular characters we already have and just put them in a book together, right? So they took Thor, Ant-Man, the Wasp, Thor, I already said Thor, Hulk, and Iron Man.
Thor's in there twice.
Yeah, they just put them together in this loosely...
Did you say Giant Man?
Ant-Man.
Oh, Ant-Man. Yeah, he was Ant-Man.
He wasn't Giant Man until issue 2. But they put them together in this very kind of loosely thrown together comic book, and it bred the Avengers. And now, of course, the Avengers has become the biggest thing. So it started with Lee, it started with Kirby, and then, of course, the next big thing was that Roy Thomas and John Buscema came in the 70s, created characters like the Vision and the Kree-Skrull War and a bunch of big famous stories, of course. And like I said, the original lineup, but then, of course, Captain America joined, Hawkeye joined, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, Roy Thomas brought in the Vision, and other characters joined in over time. Steve Englehart and George Perez had an amazing run in the 70s as well. Roger Stern took over in the 80s, and then eventually John Byrne, and that led to the split between Avengers and West Coast Avengers, and you had John Byrne doing both of them. In the 90s, you had Bob Harris, eventual editor-in-chief in Marvel, and Steve Epting doing their version of the Avengers. It was the one with Black Knight, Crystal, Hercules, and they all had the jackets, the leather jackets, And then, of course, we got Heroes Reborn. We don't really speak of that much because it involved Rob Liefeld. But after that, we had Kurt Busiek and George Perez back again to do another run. Then Jeff Johns, Brian Michael Bendis kind of really took... Basically, what happened is that Busiek took the brand of X-Men, of Avengers, after Liefeld's Heroes Reborn, right? Yeah. A book that Liefeld got fired from halfway through. I'm just going to point that out. But anyway, so then you have Busiek that built this name and this brand back up, and then Bendis took it even further by adding characters like Spider-Man and Wolverine, wanting to get them all together. Then Jonathan Hickman took over after Brian Michael Bendis. That was a fantastic run. I'm sure we're going to be talking about that tonight. Then Mark Waid's most recently been doing it, and they've been doing this big thing right now. We got Jason Aaron on a run coming up. I read issue 1 of that already, and it's brilliant, guys. You guys are going to love it. You have to read it. It's the most epic, giant, huge Avengers story I've ever read. It's straight up. The first issue feels like Grant Morrison's first issue of JLA.
Oh, really?
Yes. The
White House explode?
No, but it's a big deal. But they've been doing this No Surrender story right now. That's been fantastic. By the time you hear this, it's already wrapped up. But that's been really good. So, how important are the Avengers, Brooks? We just went over their history. Why are they so important, though?
Like important to
comics,
or to you? Why do you think?
Or to you? Yeah.
Well, they're like the super team in the Marvel universe. You know, I'm more of the Marvel guy, so knowing what's going on in the Avengers is kind of like a key thing to knowing what's going on in the Marvel universe as a whole.
Especially lately, because all the events, Civil War, and Secret Invasion.
There's a lot, like they're integrating a lot different characters. Like they've tried the Unity Squad.
Yes,
like
with
bringing
the X-Men,
in X-Men and mutants into besides Wolverine.
What's your favorite era of the Avengers?
Probably the post-disassembled era.
Yeah,
Avengers.
the Bendis stuff, the new Avengers, all that. Luke Cage, Spider-Woman.
Yeah, they brought in a lot of
Yeah.
more obscure characters and gave them a chance to shine. Which they
Jessica
kind of
Jones, man.
Yeah, they kind of did that with Firestar and Justice in the previous Avengers.
In the music run, yes, absolutely. What about you, Drew? What's the importance of the Avengers to comic books and to you?
Well, for me, reading the Avengers always felt like that's your roadmap for the Marvel Universe at large, especially lately since they have all of like the X-Men. You have some Fantastic Four in it sometimes, especially with the Illuminati. And if you're reading the Avengers, you know what's going on. You don't have to read every single individual book because a lot of times they cross over into those books.
What's your favorite era?
Probably I guess it would be 2000s, the Bendis and some of Busiek.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. And then Johns is in there a little bit actually.
Yeah.
Like
for a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Jeff Johns is right after Brian Michael Bendis, and then Chuck Austin's Jeff Johns is right after Kurt Busiek, and then before Brian Michael Bendis there was Chuck Austin with a not too good run. What about you, John? What's the importance of the Avengers to you?
Like they said, kind of the pulse of the Marvel Universe. If you're following them, you've kind of got an idea what's going on. And all the big events seem to always cross over with the Avengers, regardless if it starts as an X-Men book or a Thor book or whatever. Of course, Thor is an Avenger.
Absolutely. You guys were talking about, like, if you want to keep up with the Marvel Universe, keep up with the Avengers, and that's definitely been true lately, especially since Busiek built that brand up and then Bendis, took it to new levels. Absolutely. So I agree with everything about you, and they also have some of the best members of all time, right, John?
Oh, they do. There's some great. Here's the thing: when I go back and look at it, there's some characters that I identify immediately as Avengers. I'm like, oh, these guys are in the Avengers. But there's a lot that I forgot. Honestly, for some people, I forgot were in the Avengers at all, or some that I wouldn't even come to fathom would ever made an appearance. And sometimes they're not in there very long. Some have been in very short runs, but
Black Rage.
Yeah, there's been some great.
My bad. His name is just Rage.
There's been some great members on the team.
But if it was the 70s,
what about? I'm going to actually start with Brooks. Who's some of your favorite members on the teams, or in your opinion? I know you're a big Thor fan.
Yeah, well, Thor is obviously my number one guy, but he's actually kind of off and on. He's been off and on with the Avengers for a long time because sometimes whatever's going on in his own book is so huge and epic that he has to not be there, or he's dead or something like that.
Or he's dead.
But,
that kind of ruins it, doesn't it? It's hard to be in the Avengers. If
I've always liked Black Panther as an Avenger too. I think he works really well with with an Avengers team. He's kind of like a Captain America type, He's good at. He's just a good guy to have. But I've also been really liking Rogue as an Avenger.
Oh yeah,
it's she's been kind of growing on me lately.
I've always been a fan of Rogue, though. But you liked Rogue in the X-Men?
Yeah,
you weren't a big
Rogue.
fan when she was an X-Men, or you liked her there, but she fits better, you think, now in Avengers?
I think she works fine with both X-Men and Avengers team, kind of like Wolverine.
But you were a fan of her beforehand, though, right? Because you're an X-Men fan. Okay.
Totally.
What about you, Robbie? What are some of your favorite Avengers?
Well, Black Panther. Because
I heard he's got a movie now.
He does, and it's really good. Yeah. But every time Black Panther is involved in the Avengers, it's one of the best eras of the Avenger, and it's like if Black Panther's there, shit's going down. Yeah. He is seriously their Batman, and it's the best. I think I'm super excited for Jason Aaron's run because he's coming back, and Black Panther's amazing. Iron Man though. Out of all the Avengers do not exist without Iron Man, because in the publication history, Iron Man, Tony Stark, is the funder of the Avengers. He provides the Avengers mansion, was his old school mansion. Jarvis was his butler. So without Tony Stark, there is no Avengers, and I've always been a huge Iron Man fan. Lately, though, I really want to talk about Luke Cage, because Luke Cage, to me, is what the new Avengers were about, right, Brooks? You know what I'm talking about? And, Luke brings this, Luke just brings something to the Avengers that was never there.
Yeah, he's been around, but he's never been given a real chance to, a real big shot at being a hero.
And Bendis really took that character and brought him to new levels, and it was amazing, and he questioned the Avengers, and he redefined what the Avengers were. It was great. But a few other shout-outs. Anytime a member of the Fantastic Four is involved, that's awesome. Reed Richards and Hickman's New Avengers, for instance, right? Mm-hmm. And Panther in that run as well, right? Fantastic stuff. I love War Machine as an Avenger. He was first an Avenger. in West Coast Avengers,
Yeah.
but he's been an Avenger since. I love War Machine, and I really think that Beast, one of my favorite X-Men characters, works better as an Avenger. And I love it when
he
he's
does
with
at times.
I love it, and I love it when he's with Simon with Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Those would be. I mean, there's so many, right? But those were the ones that first step in my. And I also have a thing for Scarlet Witch. I think Scarlet Witch is a really compelling character and very engaging. It has many layers of depth to her, especially in the last 20 years.
What about you, Drew?
They kind of went. I think they went a little overboard with their powers sometimes, though.
No more
Like House of M, like what? She could do that?
Yeah.
Remember that time she took off her giant S shield and she threw it on? Oh wait, that was in the Superman movie.
Whoops.
It's like, wait a minute, where did that power
You're
come
only
from?
proving your ignorance, John. Bringing up DC.
I do like Scarlet Witch. Drew, some of your favorites, or ones that stand out in your mind.
Well, definitely, Brooks mentioned it, Thor as one of, because a lot of like my favorite moments from Thor, from Avengers books involve Thor. Like there's Hercules, another one of my favorites because he has the thing in Civil War with Ragnarok, "Thou art no Thor," and just brains him, destroys him. Thor also has the Ultron, "We would have words with thee" in Ultron Unlimited. And very much like he seems like whenever he's the enforcer, whenever something needs to get done, you call in the big guns, you call in Thor.
Gun.
Yeah.
Him and the Hulk were the big
Well, if you got to have a god on your team.
Well, Hulk was
I mean, if you had the choice, have gods on your team. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
I
him
wouldn't want them not on my team.
Yeah, but another one, I mean, hasn't been mentioned, Captain America, man. I feel like that's when that...
I thought other people would mention it.
Yeah,
really.
that's what... Well, I'll
mentioning Captain America.
He wasn't on my list because I was like, surely Robbie's going to mention him. But no, he is very much like the heart, because when you get to a lot of people, it's like they only join because they want to be on a team with Cap. It's like with Falcon, you don't even need to ask, man. It's like, if you're there, I'm there.
They're the Yankees of the Marvel Comics, and Captain America is Babe Ruth. Actually, he's more like Lou Gehrig.
I was about to say Hart, yeah. His name Lou Gehrig.
Yeah, he's Lou Gehrig.
Yeah.
Babe Ruth is like
Thor.
Yeah.
It was like very powerful.
And Tony
drink,
Stark
smokes.
is Joe DiMaggio.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Yes, we just totally correlated the Avengers to the Yankees. Thank you, Drew.
How about
That was awesome.
That
Look
works.
at that.
People are tuning out now.
It's just like, I'm Mets fan. Bye.
Mickey Mantle is Hawkeye. It
that
works.
works.
It works.
I
All
just-
right, we're gonna go down the entire historic roster. But yeah, those guys. Cap is always the guy when there's a big speech. Whenever there's a big soliloquy needed, he's always there, and he's always the glue. Whenever I don't see Captain America and the Avengers, it's like that. But that's kind of his thing. Like this was like he's the guy at the front with the shield.
He's the most steady Avenger, I think.
Yeah, the first they call him.
Some would say that. I've always kind of associated with Iron Man being like, when I think of the Avengers, Iron Man's the only one, not the only one, the first one that comes to mind every single time.
Yeah.
Foremost than anything else. I don't know why, especially like the old 60s comics, that style of Iron Man, that armor and those covers. I just, again, Iron Man. I think of Iron Man. I cannot not think of the Avengers. I love Iron Man. Even before the films, Iron Man was one of my favorite Marvel characters that wasn't a mutant. Because again, I'm a big X-Men fan. I really like the X-Men. Those are probably my favorite Marvel books. And that was one of the things I liked. Hey, when they start adding X-Men to the Avengers, Wolverine being the first, I think, with Bendis. And then...
We had Beast before that.
You had Beast before
Quicksilver
that?
and Scarlet Witch were technically mutants, too.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I guess they are.
Depending what, yeah.
And then...
It's been
Rogue
And then
more
Justice
recently.
and Justice and Firestar. Firestar was a mutant, actually. Yeah, Firestar and Justice.
Firestar was a
Who
mutant.
else are we leaving out? Was Jean Grey in the...
No,
No,
she never
no.
was.
Okay. I'm leaving some... We're missing other
Havoc,
mutants?
Havoc now. Havoc is
Havoc's
an
now
Avenger,
in it?
yeah.
Havoc was a member of the Unity Squad.
So was Rogue.
Yeah, and Rogue.
Yeah.
And of course, Spider-Man. I like Spider-Man in
Spider-Man's
the
not a
Avengers.
mutant.
No, but I like him in the Avengers.
And Namor.
So-
yeah.
Technically a mutant.
Yeah.
I like... I guess anybody in the Marvel Universe that has special powers could technically... look at Spider-Man. He was mutated because of we're drawing a...
But do you remember, like, back in the 90s, Marvel even made a point to be like, Spider-Man, the non-mutant, Marvel's most popular non-mutant superhero or something like that.
Even though he's got powers from... I've been bitten by spiders before. I have no powers.
There's a difference between people that accidentally get powers
And then people born...
and people born
Born
with
with powers.
Yes.
Maybe they were born this way.
Anyway... So that's our favorite, some of our favorite villains. Not favorite villains, some of our favorite members. We actually are going to talk about our favorite villains when we come back. Speaking of which, So this is Pop Culture Philosophers, Avengers. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, Rockin' Robbie here. I want to talk to you real quick about our YouTube channel. You got to get on YouTube, find Pop Culture Philosophers, and subscribe. There you will find the weekly comic book review, new comic book reviews every single week, also the weekly pop culture wrap-up. It's also the only place you can find the Rockin' with Rockin' Robbie podcast. And we just launched a brand new show called Movie Monday. Every Monday, a new video. We're going to be talking about movies, and we are starting with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Everything from Iron Man all the way up to Avengers Infinity War. That's right, Movie Monday every Monday on our YouTube channel, as well as the weekly comic book review and other such favorites and surprises along the way. So, check us out at youtube.com/popculturephilosophers.
Welcome back to Pop Culture Philosophers. We're talking about our favorite Avengers members a few minutes ago, if you recall, before the break. And now we're going to talk about our favorite villains. The Avengers has some great villains. Marvel has some great villains. And I'm actually going to start with Drew on this one. Some of your favorite villains or villains that stand out in your minds, because they have some great villains, including the very powerful Thanos we've seen in the trailer for the movie that's coming out. Maybe by the time you listen to this, you've already seen the movie. But the Avengers in general have some pretty awesome villains. Who are some of your favorites and ones that stand out in your mind?
The biggest one that stands out in my mind is Ultron. Ultron, not the movie version.
Not the crappy movie version.
No,
but he is awesome in the comics.
Yeah,
I agree with you there.
Every time that he shows up, everyone just like drops everything. It's like, oh shit, we need to get everything. It's like, especially when his versions are made of adamantium or pure adamantium or whatever it is. They
wow, I didn't know there was that much adamantium available.
There's like three. Well, he has a few copies of them made when I was reading Ultron Unlimited, but that has, of course, one of my favorite moments, the Ultron, we would have words with thee. But in Ultron Unlimited, when he kills every living thing in an entire country within 3 hours, it's like, that's pretty strong. Thanos would be impressed.
Was it a really small country, though?
It was like a Eastern European, former Soviet republic.
It's Sokovia.
No, it's got a weird name. It's like
something like that, though.
Yeah. It's one of those. Yeah, but other than that...
It's a faux Eastern European country.
Oh, yeah. WrestleMania.
Yeah, WrestleMania. Yeah, Rusev Day. Yeah, another one, Baron Zemo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's another... He's kind of like the evil Cap.
Talk about somebody who's wasted in a film. Jesus. Sorry.
Yeah. It's like, we have a lot of these with Marvel villains.
He always reminded me of a G.I. Joe villain. Doesn't he remind you of a G.I. Joe?
Yes,
Maybe it's
with the
mask.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he definitely. But it's like whenever it's like you need the Masters of Evil to fight the Avengers, he definitely seems like a very old school villain that they need.
The Masters of Evil, they're basically like the Injustice League of the Marvel Universe, right?
Yeah,
they became the Thunderbolts.
Yeah. Other than that, like some of the bigger...
Which is a way too cool name for that group, just for the record.
The Thunderbolts.
But everybody...
Sounds like a way cooler...
It was justice like lightning.
Yeah, exactly. That's my favorite thing about Thunderbolts is the tagline. Justice like lightning. Thunderbolts. What the fuck does that mean?
You couldn't just use Thunderbolts twice?
The justice is very fast like lightning.
Don't look directly at it, or you'll blind yourself.
It'll electrocute you and make you piss your pants.
What about you, Robbie? There's some... villains you want to talk about, ones that stand out in your mind? Because I know they have a great...
Well, Drew just totally stole the best Avengers villain is Ultron.
Oh, I think I see Zemo.
Because seriously, Ultron is connected to Hank Pym, is connected to Janet Van Dyne, is connected to Wonder Man, is connected to the Vision, is connected to Scarlet Witch, is connected to the whole family of the Avengers. The Avengers eventually became this whole family aspect, right? With all the Pyms and all this stuff, right? And so, Ultron, when he shows up, it hits at the heart of the Avengers every single time. Other than that, Kang / Immortus. Kang is so awesome in Avengers stories. I love the time travel aspect. I love that Kang is the younger version and Immortus is the older version of Kang, but they are both at war with each other at all times. They both hate each other. Immortus wants to kill Kang. That makes no sense, but it's so fun.
Time travel.
And going to the Bendis run, Norman Osborn. He turned Norman Osborn into from Spider-Man's Lex Luthor.
Iron Patriot. Osborn.
Like that whole era, like how he took over, and then Dark Reign, and even when he came back after that with Hammer and he tried to resurrect it. Basically, what Bendis did is he took Spider-Man's Lex Luthor and turned him into the Marvel Universe's #1 villain.
Oh, I think it's the Avengers Lex Luthor.
This guy should.
This
guy should be. This guy should be a bigger deal.
Yeah, but those are definitely to me the favorites.
Well, they shouldn't have. Nobody should have given him power in the first place. No, don't trust
He
Osborn.
saved
at all.
everybody
Lex
from the
Luthor-
Skrulls, man.
And Lex Luthor shouldn't have become president, but he saved us all from Brainiac and Darkseid.
Yeah, and look at. Never mind. I was going to say life imitating art, but we won't go there.
And never forget that justice, like lightning.
God damn. How about you, Brooks? What are some of your favorite villains? Because they have some great villains.
Well, when I think of Avengers, I can only really think of two like Avengers-specific villains, which would be Kang and Ultron. And I'd say Ultron over Kang because I hate the time travel shit that always confuses me. I'm like, this story doesn't make sense. But yeah, Ultron is pretty straightforward, and it's funny because he's like the Avengers' responsibility. They created him. Like if he's one thing, like if someone said like, if it weren't for the Avengers, we wouldn't have all these criminals. Like if it weren't for them, you wouldn't have Ultron at least.
And I really like his artwork too, his style. I think he's a really cool looking character.
He's designed to look like a super scary like Jack-o'-lantern.
Oh, is that supposed to be?
Yeah, like
I can see that.
Face,
I see that. He looks. I was going to say I thought he was like a demon. He looks freaky.
He always has that Kirby crackle in his mouth.
Yeah.
That's some great. I think.
What about you, John?
Well, one we haven't mentioned yet is Ultron. So Ultron, my list. I've got Ultron. We forgot to talk about Norman Osborn, which you talked about. Hydra in general. I know they're a Captain America villain, but they've always kind of been a villain to the Avengers as well because they have a whole crew.
Oh yeah.
And usually it's Cap trying to stop them with the rest of the team or whatever, or they somehow were involved more so behind something. But the other one I want to talk about that I love, and I think he's I just like his costume, and I think he's Taskmaster.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought about Taskmaster.
First off, his name sounds like one of those like vacuums that's also a sweeper. It's like a, you know what I'm saying? I've never been a fan of his name.
3000.
But dude, he's really cool, and he's I think he's just a cool villain. He's like a classic like bad villain, but he's just, other than just being a bad guy, he's not like, he's not trying to take over the world in a way like Ultron is. I mean, he would if he could, but I'm saying he's just like,
his job.
He's kind of like Marvel's Deathstroke.
Yeah, exactly. He is.
I'm surprised nobody. I didn't put this on my list because I thought you guys were going to say it. But Thanos is a badass Avengers.
I brought
villain.
up Thanos. Well, you
brought it up at first, but nobody mentioned it. But like, he's not in the movie. But look at like the Hickman run. Look at Infinity.
Yeah.
Right. Like, look at Infinity Gauntlet. Like when Cap stands up to Thanos. Like, don't downplay. Like Thanos.
Yeah.
Guys, seriously, right?
Well, I thought when I initially brought
I think
him up,
Ultron's better, but that's why I'm super disappointed by Ultron in the movie.
in the movie.
I really am.
Well, I think they at least
Brooks
in the movie,
is the only one. Brooks right now is like so fuming. I see it.
Did you like?
Dude, have you watched Movie Monday? He loves Age of Ultron.
Oh, I forgot.
I like Age of Ultron. I like James.
I thought he was just being nice. I do like James Spader.
I thought he was just being
Man. Y'all's
Brooks,
whack, yo.
Brooks is one of those people that I don't think. You heard your mom supposed to. What's your mom say? If you don't have anything nice, don't say anything at all. Brooks is one of those people.
Yeah.
That I don't think will speak bad at people.
Yeah, but he does like Ultron. Ultron. It seems like we all like Ultron.
He looks cool. He looks badass in the movie too. It's just kind of a weak character in the movie.
And the best villains and the best characters always come from the best writers. So let's talk about writers real quick here. The Avengers have had a lot of storied writers. Some of the best writers in comic books history have taken a stab at the Avengers. They have taken their chance at the assemblage of the mightiest heroes on Earth. Right?
Why wouldn't you want to? If you're a comic writer, wouldn't that one of your goals be to write an Avengers
What's funny
run?
about the history of the Avengers is that in the 80s and most of the 90s, the Avengers weren't shit. Like the X-Men, Spider-Man dominated everything.
The
Nobody
were
cared
very
about
B-list.
But there were still a lot of creators involved at the time, like John Byrne, Bob Harris, Steve Epting. Like a lot of good talent was on those books doing some pretty decent stories. So I want to know, first of all, who is your favorite writer or writers? Give me a couple if you want. That was my tooth hitting the microphone. Who's your favorite writers on the Avengers, Brooks?
I really like Bendis's run.
Oh yeah,
The whole the way he like basically broke the Avengers apart and then put them back together. I really liked that, and how he brought the new blood in there, like Luke Cage and Wolverine and Spider-Woman and Spider-Man.
And immediately we accepted it. We were like, they're Avengers. And like when Bendis first started doing New Avengers, it felt like Kirby and Lee doing the Avengers. Like
it was like a new beginning.
Yeah, something happened, and these random characters came together and formed a team.
Yeah, that's how Cap was always like. He's talking about it's like it's meant to be. It's like Destiny. It's just like before.
Yeah, when we were talking about our favorite heroes, one thing I forgot to mention was Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones' alias was awesome, but she really grew in the Avengers book by Bendis. So Bendis is a great answer, Brooks. Absolutely. What about you, Drew? Favorite Avengers writers?
I really like Hickman because that's one of the first I started.
Jonathan Hickman,
Jonathan Hickman.
Not Grant Hickman.
No, not that dude. I recently reread it for this, and I was reading it. Of course, it's like Captain America, and it's like we need to get bigger, and it's like we need, and by God, they did.
By drafting Ant-Man.
One of my favorite things.
Can get bigger.
No, Ant-Man wasn't involved. But one of my favorite things about that whole run is that together Tony and Steve built Avengers as a machine.
Yes.
Like they were moving parts. They all had a place. They all had a purpose. There were certain missions they would go on. And eventually when you expand it out into like Night Mask, ex-Nihilo, like
cosmic level dudes.
Yeah, Hickman was amazing on that, man.
Yeah, I love he had this a couple of the moments. It's like recruiting Spider-Man. It's like we have money. Oh thank God. it's like Wolverine. We have beer. All right, so
yeah.
And then he had when they were first getting everybody together, all he had to say was assemble at dawn. And he knew that they would. Cap just said assemble at dawn, and he's just like knew they would show up no matter what.
And talking about mutants on the X-Men, dude, look at the leaps and bounds that Hickman made with Cannonball and Sunspot.
Oh yeah,
right.
Whoa! Like Sunspot's moved way up.
Yes, he has. He's a big deal now, man, and rightly so. And this is the character created by Rob fucking Liefeld. Okay, what about you, John? Who are your favorite Avengers writers?
We hate to praise him, but he's done some good things.
I was going to say Brian Michael Bendis. Anybody talk about him yet?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Bendis,
Yeah, I like Bendis. John Byrne, right?
Yes,
Which run did he do?
He did Avengers during the Avengers West Coast split. He did both titles in the late 80s into the early 90s.
Okay, I remember liking Byrne. I do like Byrne. I know some other stuff he's
Burns
done.
Avengers
run
is fantastic. Yeah.
Because what X-Men books? Did he do an X book too, didn't he?
Yeah, he did X-Men with Chris Claremont, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Dark Phoenix Saga. There's a little thing called Dark Phoenix Saga.
Yeah, so
on X-Men? I really like
Byrne,
X-Men, by the way.
By Byrne and
who's
Bendis.
John Byrne? I heard this John Byrne guy is a good comic book guy.
I've been reading X-Men a long time, but I never heard this John Byrne guy. Yeah.
I just couldn't remember what he did.
We're not making fun of you. We're just
I can't remember what he did.
We're just giving you a gangster.
No, that's a good answer. That's a good answer.
I'm bad with remembering artists and writers. I can tell you what books I enjoyed, but if you ask me who wrote them or had done the artwork, I'm like, I gotta go.
That's true. We didn't really pay much attention to writers and artists.
Well,
back in the day.
Maybe you didn't, but I did.
Yeah, I didn't. Well, I kind of paid attention to artists a little bit, but not so much to writers.
The first comic book artist and writer that I remember knowing by name is John Byrne. Isn't that funny? My favorite, there's some great ones. I got Bendis on my list. Bendis did a fantastic job of taking the Avengers to the level where they needed to go to be in the cinematic universe, right? Mm-hmm. The Marvel cinematic. Jonathan Hickman, Drew. Hickman.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of the greatest writers in comic books ever. Of course, his Avengers.
Is there really
fantastic.
another Hickman in the Marvel universe that I don't know?
No,
or is that a joke?
No.
I'd feel really bad for talking shit
That's
about
a joke.
like Bob Hickman. He's like a janitor at Marvel.
No, but my absolute favorite Avengers writer of all time is Kurt Busiek.
Yep.
I think, Hickman, Bendis, they're great. They did great things with the Avengers, but Busiek's Avengers feels like an Avengers book. It feels classic, and it feels modern. It feels fresh and new, but it feels rooted in the classic literature of Kirby and Lee.
Yeah, he didn't reinvent the wheel, right? He just continued.
He continued.
But he kept that style.
Exactly, and it works so well, and he is the reason. So you got Mark Millar doing the Ultimates. You got Bendis coming over to the Avengers. You got Hickman. You got the movies, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But the groundwork for all of that was laid by Kurt Busiek in his run. And he's just such a brilliant Avengers writer. Every story that he wrote in the Avengers is steeped in Avengers history. So it's a lesson in the history and the mythology of the Avengers. And such a great, compelling story with great characters. He tried some things that were new. Not everything worked. right?
It never does.
But like triathlon, right? But some things worked really, really well, and he ended his run very solidly with the Kang Dynasty, which is still one of my favorite Avenger stories of all time. Absolutely, that's what I think. So, straight up. But you can't have a good writer only gets you so far, right? This is a visual medium, right, John?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I didn't give a shit what the story was about. I would read it when I got home, but when I was picking up a new book, if I'm just looking at it, window shopping, I look at the artwork first and foremost. I mean, there was those characters I always went to, and I usually picked them up regardless. But artists, that really stood out, especially some of these amazing covers. Some stuff really stood out, and I'd pick it up just based on the cover. Pick up stuff I've never even heard of, get blown away by stuff. Writing would keep me coming back. Art would initially drew me in. So let's talk about some of our favorite artists. I'm going to start with Drew. Who are some of your favorite artists have done Avengers books?
Well, talking about like music feeling classic, the guy that did the art for him, George Perez.
Oh, Perez is amazing.
And it's like, his artwork feels classic because he's been doing it forever and it's always been good.
George Perez drew the Avengers?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, he started in the 70s during the Steve Englehart run. Yeah.
And then took a break doing something called Teen Titans and some other stuff.
Yeah, just a slight break.
A slight break, and then came back and did then did music and a lot of that. And another artist that I really like is Deodato, Mike Deodato. He jumped around because he did some in the 90s and then in the 2010s.
Did a lot with the Bendis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dark Avengers, right?
He did Dark Avengers and he did some New Avengers.
Yeah. He always is like, when I think of like the newer sleek Avengers, that's what I think of.
That's a cat that, like, if you look at his artwork in the 90s, it's all muscles, legs, and hair, right?
Yeah.
But if you look, he's getting better and better. Have you seen his Old Man Logan stuff that he did with Ed Brisson?
No, I haven't.
Dude. Next time you're in the shop, I'll show you that. Dude, Days of Anger, it levels above.
Really? That's
levels
awesome.
above.
Days of Anger was actually my metal high school rock band that I was
nice,
in.
I'm sure.
What about you, Robbie? What artists stand out in your mind?
Well,
George
Perez is number one.
Yeah, Perez is amazing.
I mean, and he's not happy unless you give him 30 Avengers to put on a page.
He seems like I associate with him, not just Avengers, but every book he's done, I associate with him with big groups. It's always groups.
Yes.
Has he done what single character is he known for besides doing? I only know him doing groups, dude.
Exactly.
Deathstroke, maybe.
Yeah, but he does groups and he does them well, and he's highly detailed. I love his panel composition, his layouts, his sense of graphic design is amazing. Others though, Jerome Opeña, who did that initial arc and the Hickman run, dude, that moment when Shang-Chi just like slices through that robot, that alpha robot or whatever, like with his like butter. Dude, there's so much motion, so much captured in there. John Byrne, one of my favorite comic book artists of all time. Love him. Love his style. Love his artwork. And John Buscema. Does anybody draw the Vision like John Buscema?
No.
No. Does anybody draw Iron Man like John Buscema? No. Straight up. John Buscema
nobody draws Iron Man like anybody else draws Iron Man.
That's true, but John Buscema is the heart and soul of Marvel in the 70s. He is the Kirby of the 70s, and rightly so. And we do not need to downplay his contribution to the Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
What about you, Brooks? What are your favorite artists?
Well, if Jack Kirby's ever drawn a book, he's going to be my favorite artist on that.
There you go.
So it's Jack Kirby. I don't think his art on Avengers is better than his Fantastic Four stuff, but they're kind of different, whole different animals. Fantastic Four is way more cosmic. Avengers is more like Earth-based, at least earlier on.
Different inkers were involved in all that jazz too, and Kirby was it wasn't on Avengers for very long, but it's shocking.
Yeah,
those first few issues are beautiful.
He was there for the early stuff.
Dude,
he didn't have like a Fantastic Four type run with it.
Top 10 Kirby images for sure. The Hulk dressed as a clown, juggling elephants.
That was about,
right.
Right. Like I remember, like I'd read it, and then like. Years later, I read it again. I'm like, wait, was that actually in there the last time I read that? The Hulk was dressed as a clown?
What about you, John?
I was thinking it's one of those things that you must misremember. Like, wait, I must have misremembered that. And then go looking back. Wait a minute. Two I want to talk about. I had to go back and look this up. I'm like, okay, some older Avengers books that I read or some stuff I'm familiar with. Besides Jack Kirby, who is iconic. I love Jack Kirby. I had to go and look it up, and I came to the same conclusion that Drew did. Perez. I had to go back and look it up. Like I said, I'm bad remembering names, but I really like Perez's
Nobody
artwork and his art style.
Nobody draws the beast like George Perez.
Yeah.
Man.
I really
my
like
God.
Perez, man. That's probably my favorite. I do love Kirby, and I'm happy Kirby was brought up. Kirby, how could we not bring up Kirby?
And John Mishima.
Yeah, well, that wasn't the first name that came to mind. Unfortunately, if I explored a little more, I'd come up with more names.
And Drew mentioned Deodato, and unfortunately, he did have some '90s era type stuff, but so did Steve Epting. But Steve Epting has such a great sense of how to draw comic book storytelling. Like even his artwork in the '90s, in some of the roughest times of the Avengers, fantastic stuff, man.
There's some great artists. We may have left some out, maybe left out some writers. So if you're listening to the show, comment below. Tell us who you think we missed, who you love, and that has done work on the Avengers. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about our favorite storylines or comic book runs for the Avengers. And we'll be right back with Pop Culture Philosophers, Avengers.
Hey guys, Rockin' Robbie here for Pop Culture Philosophers. I want to talk to you real quick about our Patreon page. That's right, Pop Culture Philosophers is on Patreon at patreon.com/PCP. There you can help support Pop Culture Philosophers, the podcast, the YouTube channels, all that jazz. You can unlock exclusive content and join our community there where you will get access to PCP After Hours. It's a podcast we do. After every single podcast, we leave the mics live for a while and we release it to our Patreon supporters. We also have a newsletter that gets sent out at least once a week written by myself. A special commentary is available on our Patreon page and lots of other nifty, cool benefits. Check it out at patreon.com/PCP because here at Pop Culture Philosophers, we strive to bring a positive, insightful, and entertaining view on our pop culture, and we need your help to do that. So thank you very much.
Welcome back to Pop Culture Philosophers. We're talking about Marvel's Avengers. And I think, Robbie, you reached out to the social media. I think, didn't you, to see what, on the Facebooks and whatnot, to see what their favorite Avengers, stories?
What did the people say?
You know, we always do it about this time, every time. We do social media. We do Facebook, we do Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We're all over the place there, so be sure to pay attention. We have significantly less answers tonight than we usually do.
You were asking for Avengers stories?
I was asking for Avengers comic books / stories. So this is what we got, guys. Brian Weaver.
Who the fuck is Brian Weaver?
Brian Weaver says, Jonathan Hickman, he just recently reread it. He still thinks it's the best one ever. However, he is thankful for Bendis for bringing everybody in at various times in different ways. And that's a great thing about Bendis' run of Avengers is he reintroduced the characters in the right time, right? He took Scarlet Witch, he took Hawkeye, he took Vision off the board, and he brought him back in slowly after reintroducing these new characters. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you, B-Dubs, there. Thank you so much. James Donahoe said Young Avengers, the Heinberg stuff, basically, and the Vision origin issues. Nathan Huddleston said Infinity. Mike the Voice Matthews said Avengers Forever. Brian King said the Korvac saga. Michael Finley said Bendis, from Disassembled until Fear itself. Mm. And now I will agree with Finley that Bendis' Avengers run kind of degrades a little bit after Fear itself. I do think the Norman,
but not
I think the Norman stuff is really good.
Yeah,
that they did the resurgence of Hammer, but it was also the end of his run.
Yeah,
right.
Well.
Right. So, anyway, Alan Foster, always with safe answers, says Under Siege and the Kree Skrull War, but always with the safe answers. L.W. Allen from Dan's Panda Comics said Solo. I don't know if he means he likes the solo Avengers titles better, like Captain America and Iron Man and Thor, or if he means he likes like Avengers solo, like solo Avengers.
Or if his answer is a Star Wars answer.
Yeah, I have no idea. But anyway, Richard Werder said JLA Avengers, Busiek Perez, fantastic stuff. That was a great run. Like seriously, it was a the crossover.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Blaine
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, Blaine Bass said New Avengers, the initial Brian Michael Bendis run. And the best answer we got of the night is from David Hatch. We all know David Hatch. Mm-hmm. We love David Hatch. He says, the one where someone yells Avengers Assemble.
Yet to do in the movies.
Yes. Thank you guys.
Son of a bitches. Why haven't they done the movies yet?
Thank you guys so much for checking us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, all that jazz. Patreon.com/PCP, YouTube/PopCulturePhilosophers, PopCulturePhilosophers.com, Facebook.com/PopCulturePhilosophers, Instagram.com/PopCulturePhilosophers. Was that too much?
I think it might have been too much. People that were listening have now tuned out completely. So that was your favorite storylines or comics for Avengers. Now we're going to do our favorite.
Oh, and Twitter at the PCP Show,
Son of a bitch.
which Drew runs.
Hey. Me.
He actually has been, by the way, you've been doing a great job.
Thank you.
You've definitely stepped it up. I think we weren't getting enough attention, and you have definitely gone in the direction we need to go.
I think Drew needs to step it up, actually, because I've now surpassed the PCP Show on Twitter.
You know what actually happened with that? I don't want to deviate too much. It was like he saw that the reactions that I was getting on Twitter, and he got the taste. He started smacking his arm. He wanted some more of it. He was like, "Oh my god,
I feel like
these
it's
writers
too-
and artists are talking to me."
But I feel like it's too much if I run 2 Twitters. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah, I get it.
Yeah. In fact, we should even put in the description account post by and then tag your account.
I don't know. I'm kind of problematic.
All right, yeah, we'll keep it.
No.
He's right.
Anyway,
We're moving on.
so those are your favorites, and that was our media plugs. Now we're going to talk about our top 5 Avengers stories. Or it could be single issues, could be a story, it could be a full run. But the ones that stood out to you were the ones that you were favorite. Ones that you are favorite. After we do the top 5, maybe I'll learn how to speak.
All your favorites
proper sentences.
belong to us.
Yes. So we're going to start with our top 5. So we're going to do our top 5 in reverse order. And again, these are just our personal top 5s. I'm actually going to start with Brooks, the Magnificent.
Oh, really?
Your top 5. If you can narrow it down to 5 favorite storylines. Again, it can be single issues. It can be story. It can be arcs.
It looks like Brooks just won an
crossover
award. He
events.
just pulled
Let
this
me
piece of
pull out-
paper out of
Yeah.
Pull out my notes.
First, I'd like to thank Jesus. So, what are your top 5 in reverse order, if you could narrow it down to 5?
I think I could do that.
Oh, all right. I'm
got-
thinking the Thors in some of those.
He might be. But for number 5, I had Avengers number 1 because I love that story. It's just so
Come
fun.
on, the original
Yeah, like
book.
That pesky Loki.
the Lee Kirby. Yeah. It was his typical Loki, tomfoolery
Shenanigans.
that turns into the Avengers being formed, and it had the Hulk juggling as a clown, which was. I mean, I can never not see that now.
You need to get that printed on a shirt. I'm going to get you a custom shirt with that on it. Will you wear it?
Oh, totally.
What about your number 4?
Number 4 is Blood Ties. It was
the X-Men.
It was an X-Men crossover in the 90s. It was like it came out not long after I started reading X-Men, actually. And it was actually kind of my first look at the Avengers, which they were very different back then.
They had the leather jackets.
Yeah. It was like Captain America, Black Knight, Cersei, Crystal, like all these strange characters. And,
that was my first Avengers too, man.
It was a great story, too, because it tied into a big thing that was happening with X-Men, which is the return of Magneto, where Crystal's daughter and Quicksilver's daughter had been kidnapped by this...
Luna.
Yeah, this crazy mutant extremist guy who was basically using her as a human shield for when Magneto came back.
Was that Exodus?
Yeah, Exodus.
Yeah.
Exodus was the one who ended up going after him, but he was afraid of Magneto.
Movement of Jaw people.
Yeah.
Dude, that's a great. And didn't they had the foil covers and stuff, like the gold covers
I
and
think
whatnot?
one of them. I think
One of them was like
part
silver
had-
or gold or
yeah,
something.
some kind of.
I love the foil covers.
It
man.
was Avengers.
Of course, you have an X-Men crossover. You're an X-Men fan. I shouldn't expect anything less.
Yeah.
What's your number 3?
Number 3 is the Breakout story, the New Avengers. Brian Michael
The
Bendis.
very first one.
Yeah, the first one where they come back together after being disassembled, where because there's just this big prison breakout. One of Spider-Man's villains, Electro, pulls off under orders from somebody, and it ends up being like this big thing. Like Spider-Man just ends up being there. Captain America, of course, is there with S.H.I.E.L.D. and everything, and like all these different.
Luke
like
Cage,
circumstances
Daredevil.
like Spider-Woman's there as Matt Murdock's kind of guest
She's
bodyguard
there,
type.
She's the agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. that's there.
Yeah,
but
she's
she works at
assigned
the
to
raft.
protect him while he talks to the Sentry, and it's a really fun book. I really enjoy reading it. It makes me feel good.
It makes you feel good. Your number 2.
Feel good, yeah. Number 2 is Avengers Forever.
Oh cow.
Avengers Forever.
Avengers Forever is just an awesome standalone story. It just takes all these different pieces from from Avengers history and weaves a single story with it. And even though it's a Kang story with all the time travel and confusion,
and you said you hated you said you hated the time
like,
travel stuff.
Like it's one of those stories I like. When I first read it, I'm like, I like it, but I need to read it again so I know what the hell I just read about. But yeah, it's a really great story. I love Avengers Forever.
All right, and your number one, your favorite. Remember, this is in stone. You can never change it.
Is the Apocalypse twin saga from Uncanny Avengers. It's just recent. Well, it was a few years ago, right? Yeah. Yeah, but there's one issue in particular where it goes back to Thor's youth, where he's just had this battle and he's partying with these Vikings in this tavern, and then Apocalypse just walks in and beats the shit out of him. I mean, he just beats him bad. And Thor has to run away, and he's like so humiliated by it that it causes him to forge this weapon that ends up being a big problem for him way down the line.
It's the axe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the basic gist, this is the basic gist of Rick Remender's Uncanny Avengers. And it's that, like, now Apocalypse died, right?
Yeah.
And Archangel ascended as Apocalypse, and he had 2 children. And they're the Apocalypse twins. And it's like...
They were tortured by Kang.
Yes. It is so good. And it led to the Red Onslaught, which was not so good.
Yeah, Axis was not very good.
Well, that's a great top 5. Thanks for sharing it with us.
You're welcome.
Well, really, I'm happy there's some X-Men stuff in there. I expected that. I know you're X fan, so I'm happy there's some in there. Great top 5. I'm actually going to jump over to Drew now. Your top 5 favorite Avenger stories, if you can narrow down top 5 in reverse order, if you could, sir. Starting with number 5.
Number 5, I have...
And thanks for not being an asshole and doing a runner-up or whatever the hell that...
Honorable mention?
Honorable mention. I swear to God, I'll jump across this table if Robbie does one of those today. But go ahead.
He's smiling because it's probably going
to... got one. Sorry, you're number 5.
Number 5, JLA Avengers.
Oh, the crossover. You also love the crossover.
I'm a DC guy mainly, but one of my favorite moments is when Superman beats Thor, and everyone's reaction when that happens. And it's like, no, not him. You can't do that to him. And they just all jump on Superman and beat the crap out of him.
I'm just going to say that that's bullshit. I think Thor beats Superman. I'm just going to say that. That's the one problem I have with Busiek's Avengers run.
Yeah, but I like that movie.
I'm cool with Triathlon, but I'm not cool with Superman beating Thor. I'm sorry, he's magic powers. Magic powers.
And that's Superman's weakness, actually.
If Shazam can beat Superman, and I believe wholeheartedly that Thor could whip the shit out of Shazam, okay? So,
my money's
on
Shazam.
They always have him losing the hammer somehow in the fight.
We're off topic.
The hammer, he can't beat Superman. No way.
Thor would just sneak up on him when he's a kid and beat the shit out of him. Sort of like what Apocalypse did to Thor.
Yeah. But young Thor's like, I need to take out my aggression on somebody.
But it is a good story. It really is good.
I also how like they settle that whole beef just because Cap does the Cap thing and gives up the relic to Batman. And it's like, hey, you guys we can work together to solve this problem.
Theoretically, you could beat me.
Yeah.
So I think we should work together.
You're going to kick my ass.
That's exactly how it should go.
What about your number 4?
Civil War, and mainly because it was like my first introduction to Marvel, because I hadn't really read anything, and then it was even before my recent resurgence into comics when I started talking to Robbie and everything. I read Civil War, and it has a bunch of great moments like it's like Thou Art No Thor. There's the when Cap does it's like all I need is 5 minutes and I don't know. I will maintain that Cap was right the entire time, even the movie version. Cap's always right. No,
he was right in the comic books, but he was not right in the movie.
So in the comic, refresh my memory, wasn't it like a robot Thor or something? It's not real Thor.
That was Ragnarok.
Yeah, it was a clone / robot.
Okay, I just thought it wasn't really.
Yeah.
Did it piss you off, though? Because I wanted to flip a table over when Spider-Man was like, Peter Parker's like, I'm Spider-Man. I'm like, great, everybody you love is dead. Yeah. You fucking idiot.
One of the most important retcon things ever.
That has been retconned,
But it needs to be understood that Tony had him convinced. If you read this Straczynski run, Tony had him convinced that he would be safe.
Yeah.
No, I don't blame
May,
Peter.
May and
Yeah.
MJ are living in Avengers Tower. You know,
He's like, yeah, they're
with the Sentry, how wrong could it go?
yeah. The Sentry's
Nothing
never done
bad
anything
ever
bad.
happens with the Sentry.
You're number 3.
Under Siege.
Nice.
The movie with
The Master.
Oh wait,
With,
not the movie.
Yeah, seriously, Baron
Steven
Zemo
Seagal.
and Steven Seagal, they invade Avengers Mansion,
On a train. No, the
and then a boat.
yes. I love that run because it involves a lot of Hercules. Hercules has this because he just charges in and tries to take on everyone by himself because they drug him. They basically get him drunk, and he charges in and does a great job, but ends up getting his ass kicked, put in like a coma. And then it involves a lot of the Wasp, Janet Van Dyne. She's leading the Avengers at that point, and she's the main focus of that story. Like she's working on getting everyone together, and it's like it's a very sparse roster at that point. Like eventually Cap shows up because like he calls the Avengers Tower, and like Janet, a fake Janet answers, and he's like, that wasn't you at all. And it's like, so he shows up and like helps her, like and they save the Avengers Mansion, which, you know, gets blown up too, but that's fine. But Jarvis getting like tortured by Zemo and everybody in that was like a really tough read just because he's a great guy.
And then those same characters eventually become the Thunderbolts and Justice, like lightning.
God damn it. Number 2.
That is the new Secret Wars by Jonathan Hickman and Esad Ribic.
Or the one that just happened, the event, the more recent event.
And it's an Avengers book because it spins out, like that's the end of his Avengers run because it comes out, because I actually read the time runs out stuff before the start of that run, so it was a little confusing. But I read that, and Secret Wars, what a huge story. I love like all these different worlds showing back up. Like you have the Marvel zombies, and then you have the giant Thor core going around solving problems.
God Doom.
God Emperor Doom. And how amazing that
The
was.
ultimate savior of the Marvel Universe is goddamn Dr. Doom.
Just like the Panther God said.
Yep. And it's like, that's the only way is let Doom do it. But no, that was just such a big story to me. I felt it was incredible. Plus with Ribic and Hickman doing the work on it, it was great.
Fantastic.
And your number 1. If that was your number 2, I'm excited to hear what your number 1 is.
Ultron Unlimited.
Okay.
Oh, by Mr. Kurt Busiek.
Yep, and Perez, that was I just read it the other day, and that was the thing. It's like, we need to come together because this guy is going to kill everything. He killed an entire country in 3 hours.
It's such a big deal. Black Panther shows up.
Yeah, Black Panther shows up, and he has to use his technology to try and like give them a little bit of an edge, and that's also the story where you find out that like Vision was based off of Wonder Man's brainwaves, that Ultron was based off Hank Pym's. Yeah, that was like a what?
And that was the moment that Hank Pym conquered Ultron.
Yeah.
And then they ruined it.
Yeah, they ruined it later. But that was a big thing. Like he was shaken by all of Ultron's. It was like, this is my fault. This is my fault. And like, the Wasp was like, no, for real, it's not. It was like, you got to get over this. And finally he did. And it was a great moment for a dude just overcoming this. And plus, that moment that I have mentioned a lot, the Ultron, we would have words with thee. No one ever remembers at the next page that they get their ass kicked.
Yeah, they do. but that is one of the best moments.
Yeah,
in Avengers history.
And then just like they flip the page, and it's just like, and then I think the caption is like, nothing that they could do. It was funny as hell.
How about you, Robbie? Your top 5. Do you have an honorable mention? Do you want to get to that first?
Well, first of all, I'm not counting solo Avengers titles, right? But if I did, an honorable mention to The Vision by Tom King.
Oh, the newer book.
And Gabriel Hernandez Walta. Fantastic book. My number 5 is The Ultimates by Mark Miller and Brian Hitch.
Yep.
Without that book, we wouldn't have the Avengers movies as we have them right now. And they took the Avengers and he kind of updated them and modernized them and made Samuel L. Jackson Nick Fury. And, dude, The Ultimates is awesome, right? I mean, seriously, it's such a great update of the Avengers story, and I love it. I love it so much. They take what took 50 years of a bunch of different creators of Avengers and perfectly merge them into 13 beautiful issues. And then Volume 2 is just as spectacular, in my opinion. My number 4 is Brian Michael Bendis, especially the initial New Avengers run. From Disassembled up until, I guess it ended at Heroic Age, right?
Yeah.
So all the way through Dark Reign. That stuff was amazing. That team is great. Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Ronan, when Hawkeye shows back up as Ronan. You got Iron Fist and Doctor Strange during the Civil War Avengers Initiative years. And,
a lot more street heroes.
And we were talking about, if you want to pay attention to the Marvel Universe, pay attention to the Avengers. That started there. For sure. For certain. Right? So absolutely. Number 3, Avengers Forever. Already mentioned by Brooks. That and Mike the Voice Matthews. That is an amazing story. If you didn't know anything about the Avengers, you could read that story, which is written by Kurt Busiek and is illustrated by Carlos Pacheco. Beautifully illustrated, right? If you didn't know anything about the Avengers, you could read that and be confused. But if you read it a second time, you know everything about Avengers history. Do you not, Brooks?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an encyclopedia of the Avengers history, but it's a very compelling story about past, present, and future.
Yeah. It even had some Avengers that hadn't been Avengers yet.
Yes, exactly. Like Captain Marvel, the second or third Captain Marvel at that time, and Songbird.
Yeah, Songbird.
From the Thunderbolts, what Kurt Busiek did, and the Thunderbolts, like Justice. Like lightning.
God damn it.
Justice like lightning.
Yeah, so remember that. So that was a fantastic run. I absolutely love it and adore it. Number 2, Jonathan Hickman. I mean, his run was amazing. Okay, so his New Avengers run, which was basically the Illuminati. So you had Reed Richards, Black Panther, Namor, Black Bolt. It got dark.
Yes.
And it got serious. And it was the Avengers dealing with the ultimate scenario. They had to make life or death decisions on a multiversal scale. You don't see that from any other hero in any other, even in the crisis events at DC, no actual hero that you know from just modern, everyday comic books makes those kind of epic decisions, right? Dude, the decisions that the New Avengers had to make in Hickman's run, holy cow. But then when you take the Avengers run that goes right alongside it, and it's this interesting machine that Tony and Steve have made, but it's also about how they're two completely different people, and how, remember that Secret Wars is the after effect of his Avengers run, right? The Avengers run technically ends with the multiverse dying, because the Avengers cannot stop it, because their morality gets in the way.
Yeah, because they're nice.
Right? Yeah, ultimately, right? And it ends with Steve and Tony killing each other on a battlefield. What a nihilistic approach to the Avengers, but it works, and it works so well, and it's so fun, and it's a great one. Number 1, though, the quintessential Avengers run to me is Kurt Busiek, George Perez. Seriously. Late 90s into the early 2000s. They took the Avengers. The Avengers were shit, pretty much, in most people's minds, from the 80s into the 90s.
Yeah.
Heroes Reborn happened. Yeah. It didn't help, right?
No, it did not.
And then Heroes Return. Kurt Busiek, George Perez, and they took the... Wizard started, and Wizard was a big deal. Then, right?
Wizard was a big deal.
Wizard started covering the Avengers as if they are starting to overtake the X-Men. And that is exactly what was happening.
What happened, Wizard, the book?
Yeah, the magazine.
The magazine. Are they still around?
No.
Okay.
Not really. They have some cons, but even those are phasing out now.
That's something I had to put money aside for every month.
Well, the internet killed it
for my
me too.
Comics,
it was
part I have to get Wizard.
Like, man, it's $5, but I got to get Wizard.
Yeah,
I think Brooks still has Wizard posters hung up in his house.
Dude, I always have the posters.
I have a lot of old Wizards.
Yeah, but even then, it was a big deal. And recently on Twitter, Kurt Busiek got into a thing with Mark Miller. Because Mark Miller was like, they wouldn't let us call the Ultimate Avengers because they thought Avengers was a dead brand at the time, and so I reinvigorated it. But no, that's false, because at the time, Avengers was outselling so much at Marvel, it was becoming a very, very big deal. People were really getting tired of X-Men comics in the late 90s, right?
Yeah.
But they were not getting tired of Avengers. Like that Busiek Perez run, those first 2 years, especially the Squadron Supreme stuff, that initial first 3 issues with Morgan Le Fay, and then up until Ultron Unlimited. I mean, that's their first 2 years, and it's the most epic Avengers stuff ever. And then it kind of swayed a little bit with the introduction of Triathlon and the Eighth Day stuff and all that, right? But then it course corrected with a crossover with Thunderbolts, who remember Justice like lightning.
God damn it.
And so then they end it with the Kang Dynasty with Alan Davis, right? And it's like Kurt Busiek's run is just, that is the Avengers to me. What about you, John?
I couldn't narrow down a top 5. I'm not a big Avengers. No, I'm kidding. So I got 5 on here, and a lot of it actually, unfortunately, or maybe like mine's, kind of overlaps with your stuff. So I apologize if we step on each other's feet. So number 5, Ultron Unlimited.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I like the story. What I've read, I'll be honest with you, some of these stories I haven't read all of them, or I haven't read all the books, or I've skipped around in the stories. I'm not as big as Avengers fan as these other guys, so I'll be straightforward. But I do like the Avengers. Again, I'm a big fan of. I love Iron Man. I do like when Spider-Man and Wolverine were added to the books. There's certain books I like better than others. I like Civil War, etc. So, but number 5, yeah. So Age of Ultron, what we talked about, not Age of Ultron, Ultron Unlimited. Number 4 is going to be Avengers versus X-Men. So that's the one with was it Hope Summers, and then they're fighting over her or whatever, and then it's just cool to see them butt heads. And my money is always on the X-Men.
Yeah. Well,
only because they got the Phoenix power. The Avengers beat the X-Men every other time. Yeah. The only advantage that the X-Men have is psychics.
You said psychics or sidekicks?
Psychics.
Because
Avengers win that.
Avengers have sidekicks.
Yeah, but no, psychics. Emma Frost, Jean Grey, Rachel Summers. Come on.
Yeah. My number...
Psylocke, what's her actual name?
Betsy Braddock.
Betsy Braddock, yeah.
Charles Xavier.
Charles, yeah. Who's that? Who's that?
I was going to say, I could have named him. My number 3 is the Ultimates, Brian Hitch, which I heard was originally supposed to be called the Ultimate Avengers, but they couldn't because it wasn't selling. Apparently, that's not true.
It was a big Kurt Busiek went off. Did you see that, Drew?
Was it recently?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
he went off.
I didn't know why it was called the Ultimate. Ultimately, realistically, I never knew why it was called the Ultimates. I thought they were just relaunching. That was part of Marvel's new initiative, right?
What's funny is that eventually it was called Ultimate Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, I just remember calling it Ultimates. Anyway, number 2, New Avengers. So I like Bendis, and again, that was when we talked about this already. So we're beating a dead horse this time. They added Spider-Man, they added Wolverine, they added some new characters that were already popular characters.
Sentry. Look what like the Sentry and like the way his story develops from New Avengers through Dark Avengers, and he's like the Angel of Death. Holy shit! What? And he rips apart Ares in 2. Holy shit! Right, John? Like for real, New Avengers is awesome, dude.
And then last, my number 1, Civil War. So now that I'm thinking about it, I may rearrange those. But right now I got Civil War as my number 1. I thought it was a cool Avengers storyline. I wanted
Civil War was a big deal when it first came out. I remember.
Oh, yeah, especially the whole. I understand why they're fighting, but then that split. But there was definitely some things that I didn't agree with that were, I guess, Marvel didn't either because they were retcon.
Well, I tell you what, like that, I like the split between Tony and Steve in that story is so true and real, and it makes more sense narratively than the movie.
Oh yeah,
split, for sure.
Yeah, the movie,
and I love that movie, but I never really bought the Tony Steve split in that movie, but I totally buy it
in the comic.
And Tony's a sellout.
For those people honestly, those people that aren't big comic readers who've seen the films, read the comics because it's it's literally a different story. I mean, there's a split, but there's a completely different reason for the split, and that explosion at the beginning, how you get you know what I'm saying? The whole thing that sets it off, it literally is a different story. That other than in the name and the fact that they split, there's not a whole lot of ties between the film and the comics.
My first exposure to Civil War was actually the video game Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2. Now
nice.
that I think about it, then I was like, what? These guys are fighting each other? Wow. And then that's why I read the story, even though I wasn't huge into comics at that time.
Nice. There's definitely video games have brought me to, because of video game, I discovered Greg Rucka, because I didn't know who he was before then. And Greg Rucka is a great comic writer.
Mm-hmm.
So video games definitely pushed me into comics more than, than other mediums.
I think everybody had some great top 5s, man. I'm really happy to hear them. A lot of Bendis, a lot of Hickman, a lot of Busiek, a lot of respect for the history, and a lot of respect for the new, and I really like that. I like that mix and match. So, Brooks, first of all, I want to thank you for being here with us tonight. Brooks, thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Yeah, so in final thoughts, why don't you tell us why the Avengers matter to the world?
Well, obviously there wouldn't, if you're talking about the world in the Marvel Universe, there wouldn't be a world if it wasn't for the Avengers.
They'd all be dead.
Yeah. They'd have been blown up by something. Well, maybe not necessarily.
What about our
Just be
world?
Ultron.
They're a very inspirational group, you know. They're Earth's mightiest heroes, the best of the best. You know, the guys that you want having your back. And you know, especially with their rising popularity due to the, you know, cinematic successes of Marvel of late, they've still pretty much remained that, I think.
Absolutely. Drew, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for inviting me.
Why did the Avengers matter to the world?
To the world, I think it's unlike the Justice League, I think they're more like a super team that we would have in our universe. They're more militaristic, so we can kind of see how this would actually play out if we had these guys like Captain America.
They're a lot more fluid too. The lineup is constantly shifting.
Yeah, constantly shifting, rotating out. It's like, oh, so and so's sick, he can't make it. It's like and things like that. But as far as importance, especially now because of the dominance of the Marvel universe, everyone's getting into it, and that's why more and more you see like the best writers, the best artists onto what's becoming their flagship title. And now you can just follow the Avengers and you follow the entire Marvel universe.
You know, I grew up in a world where everybody cared about the X-Men, but nobody cared about the Avengers. And it's nice to see a world where people care about the Avengers, and that the Avengers title leads the Marvel universe right now. And I love it. And I think I'm super excited about the future with Jason Aaron coming on. These are mythological characters, like Brooks was pointing out. These are characters we can look up to that inspire us. Captain America. You know, America may not always be the greatest at all times, but Captain America encapsulates what is the best about America at all times. Does that make sense? Thor encapsulates what is the best about faith and belief at all times. And Iron Man, Tony Stark, represents the best in science and innovation at all times, right? The Avengers got it covered. And they hit on all levels, and everybody's got a favorite Avenger and a good reason for it. And they're great stories. Epic stories, great villains. That's why they matter.
I agree with you, man. It's
You better agree with us.
Yeah.
Well,
we're experts.
It's they're a good team, and they're people to look up to, and it's not just because you can read these superhero books and you can enjoy this character, X character, and you can look up to them. But working as a team, and there's something better about them as a team because you can see all these. You see character flaws more obviously in the teams, but they work with each other. You know what I'm saying? So not only do you got people to look up to, but you also can realize that you're better off as a team. That going solo is not always the best option. That it does work to work with work with each other, man. Love each other, work with each other. Don't be combative. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's got their strong points. And I think that you can take away that from the Avengers. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. That was our final thoughts. We appreciate you guys tuning in for the Avengers episode. If you're tuning in on Android, you can actually check out a whole lot more on the popculturephilosophers.com website.
They have Androids now?
Yeah, they have Androids. Or you can check us out on iTunes as well.
They're like Bishop from Aliens?
Just like Bishop, exactly like that.
Game over, man.
We're on YouTube as well. You can check out what Robbie does, a weekly pop culture roundup, as well as a weekly comic book review. And
Movie Monday, which they can capture the Avengers Infinity Wars coming up soon.
Indeed, very soon. And if you're on the site, you should always subscribe. You can always just subscribe on your device of choice, and we'll show up magically on that device when we put out a new podcast. That's not going to get you the videos, though. You have to go to YouTube or the website to get all the cool videos. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll check you out next time. Actually, you'll check us out, because next time we're talking about 80s sci-fi films. I'm excited about that one, so we will catch you, or you'll catch us. Why do I always say we will catch you? Got to catch them all. But next time, check us out, 80s Sci-Fi. This has been Pop Culture Philosophers, Avengers.